Takes us to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 1st, 2025.
No one has any changes. I move to approve.
Second. Have a motion second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, item number 6, discussion regarding police and fire department pay scale. Joe, I think we've had a couple of work sessions on this already, but I think bringing it back around to allow for some commission discussion and questions, really. So is that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we had a couple of our elected officials out during that meeting, and I wanted to come back one more time. I did visit with those that did miss, Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Potter a little bit, and so and everything has been reduced to writing to kind of cover what we've done so far. I do know, I think Commissioner Jones would like probably to have some verbal comments here in a little bit, but I basically talked about switching from the pay band system to a merit pay system with step-based pays in both police and fire departments. We ultimately landed with doing the recommendation of bringing fire to that first and just doing a 6% because it was a low-hanging fruit. And that's kind of where we ended up on some of that, and that was our recommendation at this point. And so I put all the updated numbers, Mr. Boyer, myself, and Mr. Mendoza worked to get all the numbers situated in here. And so I tried to divide those out to make it easier to look at. The first two in the agenda are our current pay plans for police and fire. So those first two behind the memo are our current pay plans. And then I put in here two options, the ultimate desired option, bringing both to that new pay system, pay scale system, and then I put the last recommendation. And so you can see through some of the information and details on that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of that information or Bo as well. And then I do at the very end talk about the annual budget impacts of each of those.
Joe, talk a little bit, if you would, please, about kind of your recommendations and where that kind of landed. Illustrations.
Ultimately, it came down to kind of it was going to be approximately, we were trying not to go above 250,000 in terms of the entire, and that's just police and fire, 250,000. And we landed about 200, and so that was kind of where we landed. And ultimately, we thought the low-hanging fruit of fire, because they're in an infancy stage, was easier to do and keep them on, and then just doing a flat 6%, because that was what was actually promised and dedicated in the last budget. This would be year 2 of the 6%. We talked about doing 6% for 5 years. Hector and I and Bo have, and Mr. Wright has weighed in on some of this. There is some equitability challenges with doing a flat 6% across the board of all positions. And so 6% basis points for salaries that are higher in scale get more inflated and ballooned, while lesser salaries don't move up fast enough. Ultimately, you probably need a tiered system, ultimately doing more percentage increase on the lower line versus upper management. And so that number just gets a little too far out in the balloon. If we did a 6% next year, there would be a lot of people that would hit top out. They would be topped out. And that's reflective in PDF page 27. If a 6% is continued, there's some tan. I think that's tan colored. I can't quite tell, but those are top outs. What did that mean? That means they're at the top of the pay scale. They cannot move. They cannot move up anymore. And so that does become a problem in year 3, and some of it in year 2.
They would move up with COLA.
Not in the current scale. They would only move up with the CPI if we move them to the new pay scale system that we are recommending. So at this point, 6% they would not get 6% because they're at the top of the pay scale. You can see that in these, and this is everybody on page 27. That's the whole department redacted. So that becomes an issue. The one thing is, the ultimate on the police department moving to the 80% of Amarillo pay scale would be a 4-year, I think, right, Bo? 4-year implementation.
By year 3, we would be at 80% or whatever percentage we set of Amarillo.
By year 3, we'd be at that. And so it would take a little longer to get there. There is a little bit of benefit of staying with our current system for starting officer. So when we move to the new pay system, we have a new pay structure. We do have a current policy in our personnel manual that if once someone's hired after 6 months with a successful probationary period, they receive a 5% increase. And so if you see at the bottom of PDF page 28, you'll see starting officer and then after 5%, those are reflective. That would be a little higher versus the implementation that Bo and I just mentioned in their salaries. Wouldn't be substantially higher, but it would be higher under this option. The only problem is it becomes the balloon effect of what continues to be, but that's kind of where we landed on the recommendation. Just keeping it at the 6, keeping the status quo on that piece, and then doing fire under the new system.
And Joe, last work session, did we talk about the 6 or did we talk about?
We did.
Okay, I was thinking it was a hybrid or something.
We were looking at both. We were looking at a hybrid on the 80, 75, and 70%. And so the hybrid is in here.
For some reason, I was thinking that was the direction we talked about going.
Oh, we landed at the 6. We did do a hybrid. I think it's in here. Yes, that's under. I did the hybrid. Well, I see one for the fire. Fire does have the hybrid scenarios under PDF page 29. So it has the current pay scale, the 75%, the mixed, and 8%. And I did not put the step schedule for the hybrid in here. I'm sorry. But we landed at 6%. That's where we kind of left it at on police. I was able to speak to both Commissioner Potter and Mayor Pro Tem Jones about this, and after, obviously, Mr. Jones has been in law enforcement a long time. I know his opinion is valued on this commission, and I didn't want him not to be able to put what he thought was an idea, so I can throw him under the bus, at least for once. I did want him to express his points, which I thought were valid. So he did produce some valid points that I don't disagree with, and cannot argue. I think the only thing that he and I may differ in some of the opinion is just I'm trying to be fair to both departments, but at the end of the day, so.
Well, I think originally when we even started talking about the step period, I'm not as concerned about, I think it's a both problem. It's a pay raise problem and a step problem. I think there's 2 problems. I would challenge somebody to find me an agency in the Panhandle that doesn't have a step program. That includes the people we don't compete with, that we don't necessarily want that type of employee here, but they have these step programs because it's a value issue for our people. That's what we're competing against. When Steve goes out to try to recruit people, he's not recruiting people based on starting pay anymore. He's recruiting people based on, when you give us 5 years, this is what you're gonna be making. And those are guaranteed numbers. The majority of those places are not civil service. So they're not bound by some type of contract that they're having to negotiate with, an association. It's because these city commissions and city councils value their first responders. So when we see the police department struggling in the way that they are with recruiting, it's an obvious pay scale and pay issue. It's a combination problem. You know, to my knowledge, we've never had any discussion about the fire department. I'm not even sure why we're really trying to change the fire department scale. If it's an issue, we need to evaluate that and look at that and compare it to other, you know, doing some exhaustive research there. I'm not sure why that got brought in here necessarily. Not that I think it doesn't show value to them, but we're not losing firefighters that I'm aware of at a catastrophic rate, or we're not having to put people into the fire academy so in order for them to come out, pay for them to be in the fire academy in order for them to come work for us. The position, how many police officers are you down right now? 3. Does that include the upcoming SROs?
No, sir.
How many SROs are you anticipating?
2.
So you're really down 5 as of September,
October, yes, sir.
October.
How many do you have in FCO training?
4.
So you have 4 that are not, they're useful, but they're not out on their own, and you have 5 openings, essentially. That's 9 places that he's had to fight for the last year. There is a pay scale and pay problem, period. I mean, it's not even a question. It's not that people don't want to come down here and work for an excellent police department. We're not showing them value in the way that we can money-wise. And so I'm not even sure why we would mix the two. I mean, we have one issue, let's address the one issue. The 6%, I don't understand personally where the 6% is gonna get us anywhere if we don't address the pay scale problem first. Because if we can't afford to do the pay scale this year, where are we gonna find the money to do the pay scale next year with them making 6% more next year? It's a valid question.
I think what you have said is fact. I do from all of our research on the steps. I think it's commonplace that we're not in that. And most other agencies, police, fire, or just in general, like you mentioned, I think that's pretty true. That is, we're behind and we should be on that type of system. I do think fire should also be on that same type of system. Now, whether we address that now or into the future is, up for discussion. But I do think the 6% does help bridge some of the gap. I know Bo and I discussed that at length. It does help bridge some of the gap. It doesn't fix the steps like you said. It does get a little bit there, but once we do move to the step system, the 5% probationary piece moves away and doesn't go anywhere.
Sure.
And so then they would be purely based on that. Gretchen, can you pull up? It is PDF page. Hang on. Excuse me. I do have the mixed pay in here. I do have it. It's 14 is the ultimate scenario.
And Joe, explain a little bit, if we're looking at, doing more than 6%, but if we're looking at the other 3, explain one more time the step pay. I understand, the mix, understand the 75 and the 80, but what was the,
Oh, will you talk
the
about
mix?
what you did on the mixed and just kind
Yeah,
of.
if you can pull up that scale, the very next page,
It's the next
PDF page 15. And if you look at year 3, because year 3 is ultimately where we're trying to get to. And you can see for corporals, we're ultimately trying to get to 85%. 85% for sergeants, 80% for lieutenants, because lieutenants are already almost at 80%, if not above. So we're trying to keep it there. But if you look at the officers, there's a scale from, in year 3, 80% to 70%, 75% of Amarillo. So when before, we were looking at 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. Now it's 5%, 4%, 4%. It condenses that growth a little bit more, so that when they are maxed out, they are still just slightly above where a corporal would start.
Cody, my thought on the fire, it feels like to me we need to do something on the fire intake. We've identified that we're, percentage-wise, you compare them to also to 75 and 80%. But I don't have a problem. I understand what you're saying as far as, the attrition is really in the police department. If we can figure out a way to still do some more over on the fire than the 3%, we're over on the police. And I think some of this probably determines by what we're willing to do come tax increase, you know, what we're looking at in tax rate
We've
and
been
budget time and all
Very
that.
conservative on that.
I don't,
Let me add before, if you don't mind, sir. Bo, if we made everybody go to the ultimate fight in 1 year, do you remember what that dollar was?
You're talking 80% and fire department at,
And police?
let me take a
I
look.
think it was around 3.
It's like 246.8.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right, 246.8, correct? Yes, that's my estimate.
That's what you got here.
So that would be what it would be in 1 year. I felt that was unattainable.
And that's taking police to the 80%.
Yes, that takes both departments to 80. That's
You
just
know,
my concern.
I guess I can understand, you're thinking why you want to include the fire department if there's not a problem there.
That's a valid point, Paul. I mean, the reason I did it, it was low hanging fruit.
What does that mean?
85,000 would get them to their 80% rule.
What does low hanging fruit mean?
That was about half of what it would take, or a little bit less than.
Jody's saying the fire department's not a problem, we don't like losing people. to the fire
Right, and I told Cody I couldn't argue that point. That is true.
department. If we're looking at having increased taxes, that's why are we,
And I thought that was a valid point. I mean, I can't disagree with that.
okay.
I'm not gonna disagree with that point at all. He's right. He's right.
Just wondering.
We just thought it was low hanging fruit. That gets them automatically at the 80%, one and done. And that's kind of where we left it.
Might add one point, the reason for bringing fire in was because they're at ground level. And if we don't get them to the step pay structure, we'll be having the same problem with them in a few years as well. So it's easier to get them on the step pay structure right now at ground level and not have to be having this conversation as we are for police. That was the reason for including them in the first place.
and I'm not opposed to that if it's been researched and that's something that's common amongst fire departments. And if you looked at all the fire departments in the area, that was something that was common. I just don't know that. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that. We had a problem, we brought a solution, and then the solution got cut and moved over, and which I'm not saying that doesn't need to happen in that way, but if you take 6% and you think we can't do it this year, we most certainly can't do it next year with them making 6% plus 2%, maybe 3% more. So it actually is 9% more plus their next year's raise, which you could be talking 12%. But we can't do the STEP program this year? That doesn't make, I'm not saying that I disagree with you. I'm saying I don't understand. I just don't, if you can explain it to me in like 5th grade level, I might be able to understand it. But I don't understand why we can't afford it this year, but somehow or
And
another
we
we're gonna.
we can switch and bring police on to 80% and just do 3% for fun.
Joe, if we did that though, what would it do to fire if you stayed with that around that same 204,000? Saying we can't do the 246, but if we did the 204, that would still leave 40 or so that you could.
So the recommendation is the 204. That's the recommendation. Right.
So if you moved.
What does fire move down to, Bo? Do you remember if we do the new positions and 3?
That is, if you'll go to PDF page, I think it's 27. Sorry, 29. Nope, not there yet. 34. There we go.
At least I'm going the right direction.
That's right. That first column, if we stay on the 24-25 pay scale, that's a 3% increase next year. 3 promotions to a fire driver and 1 promotion to a lieutenant, it would be 38,285.
So it would be pretty much a wash maybe a few thousand less. So it'd be 38,285 plus the 160, Mr. Mayor.
So what if you tried to take the fire to the 75% step level?
That would be 62,624 plus 160.
So that would take 23 off.
So what do we feel like the budget can actually handle without having to consider a tax increase? Where would we be? What do we feel like the budget would
So
possibly be able to handle?
the way we're estimating the budget right now is based on the exact same way we did it last year because the commission was very conservative, which we understand. Would you like to?
Yes, the goal is an increase in tax revenue for M&O of no more than $300,000. And so we are trying to fit next year's budget and all of these changes within that $300,000. That includes these changes, increases for health insurance, increases for all other general fund staff, and if we can, some increases for overtime for police and fire as well.
I think there's only one thing that's not police and fire in the budget, and I think that's adding our assistant city attorney. Everything else is police and fire.
Correct.
So I'm trying to add 15,000 in overtime to police and 10 to fire to get those a little more. I'm trying to get those both up to 100, and those are currently at 66 for each department. I think that's a bit low. Trying to get that up, inch it up a little bit this year. 2 SROs are on that list for our share with the school district. Part of your JAG officer bathroom got removed. I took the bathroom out on Funsley. That one's been already removed.
3 firefighters that were hired this year that for 6 months that will be on for a full year next year.
And I think that's it. Bo, am I missing anything on that short list?
1 part-time position for firefighter.
Yes,
And
that's
that's it.
Yeah, for medical. For
It's all
emergency services. I did. I'm sorry, Gary.
You know, I think we gotta look at some other things too, because
And
it's
we're-
condemned, the wall's falling in.
We are still waiting
you know,
on the insurance.
I don't know. That's not a very good reflection of Kingman either, where the walls are falling in.
I'm optimistic that some insurance funds that come in will offset enough for, I do think Mr. Burns and Mr. Knoll have enough within their budget to rebuild that bathroom. So we have 175 set aside in our capital, and then Gretchen is still waiting to hear back on what insurance is gonna claim on the wind damage, because the bathroom was damaged. It is currently closed. And so we're hoping if there does get some insurance money, we could offset it with the 175 and rebuild it. It may be a 2, kind of like what we did with Kylie Heiner. It's a 3, but we might do a 2. I think we can get close, Gary, to build it. Money we already have set aside.
I think we need, that's a mess.
We agree.
address that.
I think the insurance is one thing we're waiting on to see what they're gonna do on that. It was insured. So I don't think we've heard anything, have we yet, Gretchen?
Last they were asking me about previous water damage. The building's old, so we won't get full cost on it. But they are looking at it. So I think there will be some money. He's working really hard with us to get us everything we can get.
John and Brian have looked at other restrooms.
I'm at about 160 for a pre-built, and that's just bringing it here.
One of those where they crane in.
Concrete coming in. Some they're doing in Amarillo. Before we did something, we'd want you guys to look at it, but that would not include the foundation work, electrical work, and the other stuff that we would have to do to prepare for that.
So going back to, I want to make sure that where we got that 80% number from. And I think it's important because I think, and I'm throwing stones at myself. I have not been very good about just randomly picking out department pay and looking at seeing what people were getting paid. And when I saw it, and really it came into conversation because Steve is going to start sending people to the Sheriff's Office Academy. And the pay differential, our pay is categorically low at the Sheriff's Office. It is bad, and we're trying to work on that. But the pay difference between our two is still very substantial. I mean, his guys are getting paid about $10,000 a year. Well, that's not true. It's probably $12,000 a year starting pay, different than the sheriff's office. If he puts if he puts his people in our academy and with our people every day, the fear is that we're gonna recruit them, which that could happen. I mean, we don't even have to say a word. And just by them being around and then getting paid more, you know, that could be a problem, and that's gonna continue to be a problem. He's gonna continue to have leakage towards the sheriff's office if we don't fix that. And when I started looking at it, I'm like, how in the world did we get to this spot? Like, how did this happen? I don't understand how it got this bad. And so we started doing research and found out that Amarillo Police Department uses that 80% rule against the DFW police departments. And they've got a collection of them, and that's how they measure where their pay needs to be. And then they go back to collective bargaining and go back. And so this puts in place a mechanism for us to not be caught off guard again as an elected body, to know that our people are getting paid within that percentage. So as Amarillo Police Department maneuvers that, we get to maneuver that too. I don't know where, and that may be a good scale for the fire department. I don't know. I don't know what Amarillo Fire Department uses to find their pay, but that's an arbitrary number when you move it over to the fire side. I don't know where, I don't know that makes a difference. I don't know that maybe they're adjusting their pay every year. I don't know how that happens. That's not the way the police department works. They have a systematic system that's 7 to 10 years, and they change that. And so that's where that number, that 80%, it didn't just come out of thin air. It's a pretty good research number.
So you're pretty comfortable with the 80% if that's where we landed?
Absolutely. Am I comfortable with it? No. I think it's very disrespectful to Canyon Police Department. Do I think they're 80% of an Amarillo police officer? Absolutely not. But I think that's as close as we can get, probably.
Problem is, I think we've got the same issue over on the fire, and, you know, so we're saying, you know, we could probably do something, go ahead and take fire to the STEP program too, but we'd be, you know, maybe with the same dollars, maybe at 72% or something, so. you know.
As long as it's researched and we're not just pulling a number out of our hat, I'm cool with it. But right now, I haven't seen any evidence of what 72% of Amarillo Fire Department means, and if that's even important.
So is that up there? So the 75, the mixed 80%, is that based off of Amarillo Fire Department salaries? That's
Yes,
what
it
is their
is.
percentage?
Yes.
We just don't know how it came,
Yes.
how they determine their salaries.
Mimicked. Yeah, I don't know how they determined.
Gotcha.
I do not. We can find out.
And that may be a great system. I don't know. And the STEP system may be great for the firemen. I don't know. I just never.
Do you remember what their bargaining is on the fire side? Do you remember at all, Dennis?
If I can point out one more thing, if you go to PDF page 12, looking at our current pay scale compared to Amarillo, you see for a firefighter there at the very right, we're currently at 85 to 95% of Amarillo for the firefighters. So we're already very competitive there. It's in the officer positions where we are falling behind.
So are those projected numbers that we've looked at, is that based off of the officer positions that we need to raise? Because we wouldn't be raising the firefighter then,
That's
if we're
right.
already
The
at that
biggest
percentage.
changes would be especially for the fire captain and then also some for the lieutenant, but the biggest change would take place in the fire captain.
Yeah, we have to. That's my problem. Is if you use that 80% rule, you're fixing to lower some frontline firefighters' pay.
And Dennis and I had a lot of conversations about that we would try not to do that.
Of course not. I mean, absolutely. But how do you? I mean, you've got to find a system that is working somehow.
It would actually, if we did do that, one of the things that we discussed, it would lower your starting actually,
Yes.
compared to what we're paying now, compare what Dennis is paying staff now. That starting salary would lower to like 48, and I think Dennis has been starting everybody at 51, that number there. So it would lower that number going to that scale that's on PDF page 18.
Would
You
that
can,
just be on current, any new hires from this point forward, would we hold
yes,
harmless
that would be,
anyone
yes, that would be
else's?
year one, which would be this coming budget year, and so this coming budget year, Gretchen, can you go to PDF page 18? And and zoom in.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go.
How does this stuff do this at the most inopportune time?
Only when everybody's watching.
Zoom in a little bit on that page, ma'am.
That's about as far as I can go with that. Where do you want
Top
it?
left
I want
corner.
to, yeah, top left, I want to see the step one, year one. So October 1st, 2025, a new firefighter coming on will be 48. October of 2026, that would go to 49,662. October of 2027, 50,655. So it moves up each year.
And you like that, Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question about the fire department and step pay schedule is very common. And that's one thing, like you said, you can come in and show a starting employee what I'm gonna make in 5 years. Here it is right here.
Exactly. Exactly what
Just
you-
like law enforcement,
Sure.
it is the common practice to have a step plan in the fire department.
I'm supportive of whatever the commission wants to do, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to be conservative in terms of the property tax aspect. So that's, and I still, Bo and I and Joel still have to see if we can make that work, what we've prescribed. You kind of heard what we've gone into. That's the only worry. I do think if we wanted to shift and bring on PD now, I think it's probably could work within that 200,000, or even getting close to doing fire department at 75%. Could work. 75% would lower their starting pay to 45,378. We wouldn't even been starting people at 51. That's the only downside.
No thoughts.
Now say that again, your starting pay would be,
No, you're on, please.
If you did the
oh,
salary
okay,
On
okay,
fire.
you're talking about fire, okay.
Currently, I think we're about at 70% of Amarillo on pay for police.
Police.
Yes.
Yes. For officers, yes.
The thing is, if we did 80% commission, it would be, if you go to PDF page 23, this is what our budget projections would be moving forward just for police department. So it would, like Bo said, it'd take the year 1, 2, and 3, so it'd be this coming year, the next budget, and the following budget. The far right column, those would be the budget impacts in the total year cost.
So what's the recommendation?
I will say that I agree with Commissioner Jones's statements. I'm not refuting any of those. Everything has been valid. Yes, we have not lost firefighters like we've lost police officers. Chief Quinn has opened those positions. It has been fairly easy to replace those. Those are all factual. We left the recommendation at doing step scale for fire, and then 6% for police. That was where we left it. If we wanted to change and do 3% or somewhere in there for fire and move them to 80%, I think it's about the same amount of dollars, the 200. It's around that range.
And we feel like, based on that recommendation, that our budget projections would be able to handle that moving.
We're still, I can't give you a definitive
Right,
on
but
that.
right now, looking at it, we feel like that.
Yeah, I think if we,
that's a possible
and that's
thing.
where I've had a lot of heartburn when Bo and Joel and I've talked, when ultimate would be So, and the ultimate includes 4 years of implementation, just to be clear. And we feel that ultimate would be $246,800 based on our estimates of revenue needed. We felt that was a little high to be absorbed in our budget, especially this year moving. Maybe next year might be a little better, but having a bond election, having the rest of the staff percentages, and I mean, everything is flat on the budget. We just felt that that was too much to make an ask. I know it's 40,000 difference, but I just thought that was a little.
But other than those items you mentioned earlier, Joe, for the budget, all other departments would be flat or take a
Yes.
deficit, or would
One-time
decrease their
purchases,
budget.
one-time items that were in last year's budget are being removed from those departments, correct? Everything else in the budget is flat. Bo went over our entire budget just now on what my directions are. Pretty simple.
But this is still cheaper than the
And this is
5-6%. Is that right, Bo?
For the 5-6%, I'm sorry.
We talked about doing 6% for 5 years. It still puts them above where they would be, and it's less expensive to the taxpayer.
If we go to 80% for police, it would be more expensive in the long run.
The 80% would be more
The
expensive?
80% would be, yeah, if you scroll down there, at the very last line, that's kind of the compound total increase from this current year. If we stick with that, just 6%, total increase to the current year would be 1,316,000. 80% would be 1,580,000. That, consider that is over a 4-year period.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure. I wonder a little bit about that, Bo. Is that some compounding effect?
I was asking.
Correct, yes. It's year one plus year one, and year two, year one, year two, year three, and then year two, one, year two, year three, year four. So it does compound every year.
I don't have a problem going to the 80% step with police and just trying to do what we can over on the fire steel, but recognizing that likely it's not our long-term solution there either. So,
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say all this and I'm gonna kick it back to Steve and let them really dig into those numbers and see if this is something they really want.
Ask Steve how many hours he spent on this
I'm
coding.
sure it's 5 billion. And then I come in here and jam it all up. If we can wait a year on step for the police, I'm in a hurry to do a step for the fire. Like, we walked in here, y'all were ready to give 6% and wait to do step increases for the police till next year, but the thought of waiting a year to do the step increases for the fire department seems to be a hitching point, and I don't understand why. I mean, let's take a little time and research, it's not gonna kill us.
I thought we were gonna do hybrid, I misunderstood.
Okay. I would love for, I also would love for Steve to have an opportunity to look at those numbers and see if that's something that he'd want. I mean, because we're throwing a kink in your system there a little bit.
Your thoughts?
So my original thought, when we started all this and we were working in a direction, it's like Commissioner Jones said it at the very start. We're working on two different problems. And so after a super long meeting one day afternoon, and Joe had left, the rest of us stayed for another 2 hours, and we just couldn't get past the fact we're working on two problems at one time. And so my suggestion was that we let's solve one problem at a time, and that's why I brought the 6% back up. And I'm not the math guy. Bo has to do all the math. I can't understand why if we won't pay across the board at 6% for this year, and then we have a whole year, another year to work on putting in the step program, because the STEP program for most of the officers is gonna be more than 6%. Then I don't see how that's not gonna ease the burden a little bit into the next budget year. If that makes any sense, sorry.
Bo, help us.
I'd like to see how it's gonna impact the financials, but like you said, you don't know exactly yet about our budget stuff.
Yeah.
I think you need to pin that down a little bit more. We're gonna have to do it for next year.
Yeah, and we're just not there yet, Commissioner Lyons. And these guys are scheduling budget meetings with all departments right now. I can't give any definitives yet. We're just not far enough along.
So Bo, is the 6% next year hurting us or helping us? Or am I looking at that wrong?
We already have some positions that are already at 80%. So if we add a 6% on top of that, they're just getting further above where we want to get them. It's those that aren't at 80% where it would help. So yes and no. It just depends on what level of position you're talking about.
And don't just agree with me, just because I'm saying it. But is that because our system is skewed from the get-go?
Yes.
So we're fixing to widen that gap.
So we really need to just truly know what we need to do. Is it a step system? Is it a percentage increase to not cause further issues down the road? How do we clean it up instead of compacting?
The step pay will fix the problem that we're running into with compression, which Hector could get into more of. The 6% would address more of the retention. What we're trying to do both.
Problems, which way do you go? Yeah.
Has anybody got a quarter?
So is this something that has to be determined tonight to move forward?
not an
or-
action.
No, it's
Oh,
not
it's
an
not
action.
action, so we're just talking again,
We're
okay.
preparing you for the
There's
bu-
no
we're
action
preparing
here.
you for the budget. Because
Okay,
as we move
perfect.
into the budget, this decision's gonna have to be, we gotta go one way or the other.
So we would be able to have more clear budget information and ideas before we have to decide which way that we need to go.
I
Okay.
told finance and police and fire, I really wanted y'all to have some understanding of what we're looking at, where we're trying to get more than what we do on average. I think this was something we needed to educate on and address, and it needed more attention than what we usually do in the budget.
Can I speak to the past? Many years ago, we were on a step system, and it was very clear. I mean, people might move up 2.5%, whatever, due to merit. We were always given a 2% COLA, and we were told to stop the COLA, freeze everything. So that's, I believe, where a lot of this problem came into play, because our payroll was frozen for about 6 years. We weren't doing COLA, we would do merit, but our police were coming in at a 6-year-old entry rate. So then trying to catch up to the times has created this whole rolling mess. But the step pay worked back then.
Gotcha.
We used a for-profit system for a nonprofit government entity to try to motivate people to do better work.
I'd like to get closer to where we are with budget, find that information, and I'd really like to know where we would be, what it truly would take to fix the problem moving forward instead of Band-Aiding a problem, because the Band-Aid's not gonna stick. So what, and then we can make decision really, in my mind, based on more true numbers instead of guesstimating. Maybe.
So in terms of fixing, so our fix is over a 4-year time period.
Right, and I get that, right. So how much, each year that we're looking at, if we truly fix the problem, where would we be with that instead of saying a 6% really sounds like more of a Band-Aid and causes
So-
more issues on the backside to me.
I know you have this memorized, so here we go. Current 3% increase for general fund staff total. Do you know that off the top of your head?
I have it.
No cheating.
For general fund staff, 282,000.
Does that include police and fire?
No, it does not.
So that's 282,000 for everybody else in the general fund. And then this would be another 200 on that. That should help clear. Another 200, the recommendation's the 200 right here, Danny.
Yeah.
The ultimate would be the 246. So that's almost $500,000. That's what we are struggling with in terms of the budget. That's just a lot.
What percentage is non-officers of your total? Not include just your line guys? What percentage of your staff is that?
It would be
Just the
17.
patrol rank to officers, is that what you're saying?
Uh-huh.
Yep, there it is.
It's about 20,
This could be.
be about 20 to 24, 20 officers.
20 officers, so 9 of 20 is, gotcha. 9 of, well, that says 9 of 17.
Are we doing math in our head?
No, because he's got that there.
Steve's not.
Chief's not on that.
So you're at full capacity at 17 officers, you have 9 that are not filled right now.
If I'm at full capacity right now at 30, then I have 4 sergeants on patrol, I have a sergeant in CID, I have a sergeant in SRO, and everybody else is a patrol officer. Well, and 2 corporals and detectives, but
Lieutenants, captain.
Yeah.
So 17.
We are good to bring this back with budgets. And so we can do that. We're more than happy to do that as the budget moves along. And then we can address this more closer to the end, Commissioner, if that's the goal. So, at the end of the day, that's where it's gonna lie. And so as Bo mentioned, we're being conservative of 300, no more than increase in property taxes of 300,000. You guys may reduce that, and that'll impact that number. So that's what I've instructed finance to do, no more than going into budget.
In the meeting that Steve was referring to, these are the exact questions that we asked each other. And we kept circling around and
Circled a lot.
and we'd get frustrated, we'd go back to the other plan and
Realize we can't invent money.
And that's why we came forward to you all, knowing that, okay, we've circled it, we need you to point us, and then we can really run into that area deeper. Is that right, Joe?
That, yeah, probably 20 hours worth of circling.
Because we did, and I mean, Steve's right. I mean, we were there another 2 hours, and we didn't find an answer.
That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mayor, I think we might have inadvertently skipped number 5 on public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back to public comments, comments from interested citizens.
Sorry, Mayor, nobody signed in.
Takes care of it, don't you?
Just thought I'd mention it.
All right, well, let's go on then to item number 7, our after action report for Friday, April 25th, 2025. That's the next Saturday too, so. Chair.
Commissioners. If you'll remember back a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, Friday, April 25th, about 11:32 in the evening, at night, we had a tornado happen in Madison Park area. Basically, it all started around 11:35 or at 11:35 p.m. when the tornado warning was issued by the Weather Service after they spotted some circulation on their radar. So talking to the Weather Service to start this off, it takes 3 minutes for the radar to make a loop. And right after the radar made a loop, the tornado formed. And when 3 minutes came back around, it was there. 1 minute was not there. There was no indication of anything. In fact, we were watching things to the southwest of around the Hereford area coming into us. So that's why 11:32 was the actual drop down of the tornado. 11:35 was the warning was issued. So we had a bit of a delay there just due to radar. Like I said, we were concentrating our efforts and getting the spotter out to start watching what was coming in from the Hereford area. It was a tornado warned storm as well. And in normal tornado fashion, they come from the southwest, go up to the northeast. So, normally. Shortly after the warning was issued, damage reports were being received. We had Lieutenant Garton that lives up there in that community, right in the path of it. Fortunately, not a lot of damage, some fence damage and some other things, but his house sustained no major damage. Anyway, that initiated our initial response up to the neighborhood. He got a hold of Chief Whitfield, and Chief Whitfield started that way. I was headed that way myself. City manager called me, said, "Where are you at?" I told him. He said, "Come pick me up." So I turned around and go pick him up and get him back up there. Once we get up there, initially Chief Whitfield, since he was the first arriving, he established an initial command post at 37 Gracewood. The reason for that is Lieutenant Garton's house, and the rain that night, Chief Whitfield was thinking, at least we have a garage that we can get into. Once we got up there, and the pedestrian traffic and the vehicle traffic was just basically plugging up the streets. So I did find Chief Brush, and we made a plan to move the incident command post back up off of 2590 at 2100 Lawyer's Title. Fortunately, not long after we got up there, a building owner or a rep came by, was checking on damage to his building, and he allowed us to come inside out of the rain. Did not realize at that time how much damage that building had actually received till later on. But anyway, we got the incident command post moved to that location. It provided a large paved area for all of our resources that were responding into the scene to gather up for assignments. We established a unified command post. The city departments that were represented at the unified command post were, of course, police and fire, city management, public works, planning and development, communications, and our PIO officer, and last but definitely not least, our OEM people, emergency management. Other agencies that were represented at the command post, we had Randall County Sheriff's Office, Texas Department of Public Safety, and BSA EMS. At about a little after midnight, 12:13, on the following day, April 26th, after we established a command post, gathered them all up there, and Chief Brush started initiating law enforcement assignments to that area, and I'll let him go into that in just a little bit. Chief Whitfield was assigned to start our search and rescue efforts and coordinate fire department. We did receive one page for the entire incident, and that was a report of a damaged residence on Wilford Lane. We were already in response mode at that time. Our volunteers were coming in. Actually, all in all, we had 24 members of the fire department respond to the incident, 10 volunteer firefighters and 14 career. We had made a callback call to all of our off-duty career staff to respond as well. 9 fire vehicles responded along with fire trucks and reported for assignment. Fire resources were assigned to search and rescue assessment by streets. All the streets in the subdivision were searched, finding no reports of injury. Searches were initiated at approximately 12:25 a.m. and we were complete by 1:30 a.m. Fire resources and other than command units were released back to the fire station at 2:11 that morning. After the initial response to the incident stabilized, Chief Brush and I decided, let's move the command post to the police department. Things started settling down a little bit, so we relocated to the police department and basically opened up a more formal EOC. At that point, we still had a few things going on. Fire was able to be released shortly after that, but many of those members stood by at the fire station for a couple more hours. We continued to monitor another approaching storm from the Hart Nazareth area that had a confirmed tornado in it, and it was tracking towards the city of Canyon. As the storm approached the city of Happy, it weakened prior to its arrival in the Canyon area, so we were fortunate there. The next day, on the 26th at 8 o'clock, city department heads reported to the EOC for assignment. I'll just speak on fire's behalf here. we were assigned to accompany the National Weather Service office for a damage assessment and for Mike Gittner from the Weather Service to come in and, number one, confirm, was it a tornado that caused all the damage? Two, what was the rating of the tornado and the path of the tornado? So we assisted with that. After it was conducted during the survey, they determined it was a tornado. Tornado was rated as a upper end, strong EF1 tornado, maximum winds of 110 miles an hour. Path of tornado was determined to have been initiated along Hunsley Road, traveling to the north into the Madison Park neighborhood, then west along the Williford Lane Street, then south-southwest over to affecting one house on Aztec Drive, then the funnel dissipated to the south of Aztec. Fire was released from the entire incident by city manager at approximately 12:15 that afternoon. At this time, I'll call up on Chief Brush and then OEM, and then I'll come back and kind of sum things up.
So, I guess when the tornado was striking, I won't go through all the timeline thing again. Was on the phone with several people. I had checked with patrol, and they didn't. The calls for service were very minimal. They had received one call through dispatch for a house. A person was reporting their windows were broken and their roof was gone or had blown off. But we just had the one report, so we didn't know how extensive it was. The officers went to check and got there a little after or near the same time as the fire department, and that's when we found the extensive damage on Williford and weren't really aware of anything else. I don't guess we received any calls from Hunsley Road or Aztec where the other houses were damaged. I was on the phone with Dennis and Joe and patrol, kind of all in the mix there. So I went to Gracewood, and like Dennis said, we pretty quickly moved over to Lawyer's Title. Once we got to Lawyer's Title, we had several law enforcement agencies. The sheriff's office was on scene, and the DPS troopers were on scene. We had our officers on scene, obviously. So we started. The officers kind of started getting the neighborhood shut down themselves just because of the amount of traffic that was already in the Madison Park area. We eventually were able to get that shut down, and we used the emergency services unit from the Randall County Sheriff's Office to relieve officers and get officers back in service, not knowing exactly what we were going to need those officers for, but knowing that we probably needed to get them freed up for the next assignment. Once we got the neighborhood secured with the ESU people, Chris and Public Works got some barricades out there. However, we weren't going to leave those barricades unmanned because people would just move them and drive into the neighborhood. We got the neighborhood secured on perimeter wise, and we initiated a patrol officer to just patrol the neighborhood until we were going to have to kind of wait till sunlight to see where we stood so that we'd know what we needed to do at that point. When we first responded to the command post, I think we were at Lawyer's Title by this time. We started recalling some people that were off duty to come in and get cars and be in service for whatever else had to happen. We did have to. Before we got our recalled officers in, we did have to send one of our teams out to work a crash on I-27 or 87, I forget which highway. So that took up a few more people in the midst of everything happening at Madison Park that we still had to address. The roving patrol was left inside the neighborhood until daylight when my mistake, I vastly underestimated the amount of onlookers we would have in the neighborhood, not to mention the people that honestly just wanted to help and other companies that were getting called in by insurance companies and homeowners and all that kind of thing. So that was that was on me. We released the neighborhood thinking that, because it was daylight and the residents would be up and moving about, that we would be okay, and we weren't okay. So that had caused us to recall even more people. Some of the people who had been recalled during the night were released during the down period when we were ready for sunup. So we had to recall more people for traffic control. We finally got that under control, mainly running a big loop around Madison Park. We didn't control the main entrances. I had let it go beyond the point of taking it back once we lost that ground, I think. So we were just running traffic mostly one way to keep that going. The neighborhood kind of took care of itself. Lots of people got in and helped each other out and did some cleanup. A bunch of neighbors started cooking food for other neighbors. So that kind of took care of itself. And like I said, once we got traffic under control, then that facilitated some of the cleanup as we were able to move vehicles, trailer vehicles and dump trucks and that kind of stuff in and out of the neighborhood in a more organized manner. And so most of the neighborhood was fairly back to normal by that evening. We did have a shift change for our traffic control people that afternoon, and we held on to traffic control till about 8:30 that evening, and at that point, most of the traffic had dissipated in the neighborhood. Like I said, was pretty back to normal. So we completely released then, and I think at that point we were back down to long-term repairs that weren't going to be able to get done. It was getting dark, and so that kind of settled it. Other than just many lessons that we learned from working the tornado, that was kind of the extent of the police department's involvement. But we do publicly want to say how much we appreciated the other agencies, the Randall County Sheriff's Office, always on the spot for us, and the Texas Highway Patrol that came out and helped us out. Of course, the ESU people, those are completely volunteer folks, and they were out there in the thick of it. So we just want to say thank you to all that. WTPD, of course, yes. Sorry, I always miss somebody, right? WT was right there with us. They secured the campus, and we were in communication with them to make sure that the campus was secure. And one of the WT guys and one of our guys made a run through. They divided the city up into sections. We made runs to make sure that everything was secured or undamaged in the rest of the city. The damaged places, once the fire department checked them for victims or people who were hurt or injured in the damaged houses, then we sent people back to those to make sure that we didn't need to physically secure those to keep their houses from being burglarized or stuff taken from their houses. There were just all those different little pieces that were moving at once, but the short version, we got all that done with the people we recalled and the on-duty people. But then the gap between getting everything secured and we know where we stand to sunup is when I released people, and then I found out how bad the traffic was going to be, so we had to recall people again. So just a big lesson learned. Another lesson learned, if because y'all will probably be the ones to hear the complaints. Should this ever happen again, we would of course we would secure that neighborhood. That neighborhood's really easy to secure. There's two different roads to come in and out. So we would probably hold that neighborhood, the entire neighborhood this time but that's just a lesson learned.
Evening, everyone. Max Dunlap, Director of Emergency Management. I'm joined this evening by our Deputy Director, Jarek Hubner. Jarek actually is the one that deployed down here during the evening of the event. Just want to echo both chiefs' sentiments before. This was a very interesting weather event, on top of also chief brush assessment of, in the 2 decades of emergency response and experience that I have, this went about as well as it could have with what this city is, and is a testament to who this city is and who lives here and the culture that we have here. It's amazing to see. So I won't go back over all the timeline again, but I do want to kind of highlight the tornado warning and the outdoor warning sirens. I know that's a question that a lot of our community members have. So during that evening, there was a very, very active day leading up as well as evening on that. Like Chief Gwen said, we were looking at a number of storms in the area, specifically ones coming out of the southwest. And it was that rotation of the radar that really heightened that initial notification of a rotation on our radar screens. So during that night, both Jarek and I were kind of glued to our screens, and we were talking back and forth. A lot of phone calls were being had. And as Chief Gwen said, the moment that radar went around and that notification went out, Weather Service was immediately sending out a tornado warning, to which, per our OEM policy, immediately we sent out and activated our outdoor warning sirens. With that, we really believe that it was due to this that those sirens activated and operated properly to their extent of what they're designed to do. Again, these are outdoor warning sirens. When you're mixing outdoor warning sirens and 110 mile an hour wind, debris flying, things like that, it's understandable that it may not be heard inside the building, or even if you're standing right outside during that. In earlier conversations, the timing of exactly when the tornado went through the neighborhood to when we were sounding our sirens was within probably 90 seconds of each other, and therefore the tornado was still in the area on the ground when sirens were sounding, and therefore that sound is actually why some did not realize that the sirens are actually sounded. But how we also use separate tools and additional tools and automated tools is those text messages that our community members also receive. So all those were simultaneous. They are automated. Immediately following this event, we immediately looked into our tools, what areas can be improved, what can continue to be improved. So the automation was one of them. We are continuing to build in even more automation, so to push even more notifications out simultaneously with the Weather Service, based on the Weather Service, what they're putting out, things like that. After the day had passed, again, we came down with both police and fire and the Weather Service to conduct damage assessments. It was then immediately we began trying to look a little bit long-term into the recovery process. So we started debris management. City of Amarillo also provided us a mutual aid through what's known as a knuckle boom truck, pretty much just a public works truck with an arm to grab those larger things that can be put in the back of a dump bed. Due to the landfill was not open down here, it started to ferrying these debris back up to the City of Amarillo's landfill to continue and early start that process through debris management. I know Mr. City Manager is working with Republic on getting those roll-off dumpsters. That was extremely imperative. I would tell you, when it comes to debris management, it becomes a disaster of itself if it's not done properly. You get TCEQ, you get fines, you get a lot of paperwork, unfortunately, if it's not done properly up front. It was done to about as best as it could be in an extremely short amount of time. So very, very well performed for the resources that we had at the time. It is something that we want to continue to enhance. So moving forward, that was identified as an area that the Office of Emergency Management team will continue to work with the city on to enhance those plans moving forward and really customizing even farther for those plans based on more of those hazards, based on the type of debris that may be part of that damaged area, whether it's steel building or industrial side, or if it was residential, much like it was in Madison Park. Additionally, one of the things that our team worked with both police, fire, and Mr. City Manager on was looking at the planning coverage of our siren system here in town. So these first 5 sirens are very much the base of our system. They were initially in place to replace, or they initially were installed to replace the aged and end-of-life sirens that were here that did not cover, I would say probably didn't cover 2/3 of the city. So these new 5 sirens adequately do cover the city. So we are confident that it did work the way it was supposed to work. However, with that being said, we hear what the citizens are saying. We are listening, and we want to ensure that those planning efforts are taken into account. So we have gone ahead and started planning in conjunction with needs, the growth and prospective growth in the city on a new siren location. That new siren location for a new siren would be right there off of Aztec. So right where the alley turns back off of Hunsley, there is a power line there's a power pole with a transformer on it that would allow a above ground power system for the siren, but that would be an ideal location. It would cover the new prospective growth, that northwest area of that location, as well as it would triple down on the coverage on Hunsley. So that low-lying area, that would add a 3rd covered siren to ensure that even more sound is getting into that low-lying area. And again, it is initial planning aspects at this point, and we will go into detail of we need to do some audio testing there. We need to get some decibel meters in that area to see what they're doing, what it's actually reading in the low areas of Hunsley. So it is subject to move slightly. But with that additional siren, we tried to just generally budget for at least $50,000 on that siren, so that is what I would recommend. Not necessarily the system worked, but we also want to ensure that we're hearing what our citizens are saying and doubling down on our coverage and the protection of our citizens in that new area, as well as to remind them that we are here in support of them. So do it for that position or for that concern. We want to ensure that a new siren is put in place as well to ensure that doesn't happen again, or that if there was anyone that didn't hear it that should have heard it, that we have that covered. Open for any questions or comments or concerns.
Max, I have to leave, but thank you for all y'all's work, as well as police and fire. And the response, I've heard nothing but positive from the response to that. I think lots of people chipped in. We had lots of people with Canyon ISD that were actually affected by that. And it's been a very positive response. I've not heard nothing negative based on everything that happened that day. So I just wanted to say that before I have to get to the school function.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Possible, Mr. Mayor and Commission, I'd like to absorb that into our existing budget, to add another siren. I think we could probably do it. Yep. We still need to do some decibel readings, in Hunsley to see. Especially like, that, kind of probably close to your house, Gary, that, I'm trying to remember what street is that. Jenny Wood, and what's that cross? Is that Country Club? Yeah, probably right there, because it kind of drops off there.
I don't remember, I remember we just recently put our new sirens in place, like
Two
in the
years
last
ago.
couple of years. Where are the closest, the clocks?
To Madison Park, the closest one is at the elementary school of Spring Canyon. That's the closest one. The next closest one is at the street barn over here.
One of the, sorry, James. Go ahead. So one of the additional findings that we have, so at Spring Lake right there, there's an additional siren that is a county siren, however. So one of the things that we are moving forward and changing in our operations and our, what we call hotkeys, in a sense, it's a button you push and it identifies specific sirens to sound. So we will be adding that in the City of Canyon's hotkeys to ensure that there's other additional coverage north of the elementary, and both those sirens do overlap. So that will also have in that new growth area, you will continue to have 1, 2, 3, almost 4 sirens in that area of coverage moving forward.
And kind of to Max, when we were talking about with Max, so in our opinion, the siren at Spring Canyon and the siren at Spring Lake, which is a different entity, which would be the county, those probably should have gone up together. And they may, I don't know.
They did.
They did go off, but like you said, that should be automatic. If that makes sense.
To finish up here, identify the other departments that were in on initial response, and of course, Saturday's activities. Public Works, and Chris, if you have anything to add, please do.
Chris, would you stand up and talk just briefly, sorry,
Okay.
Dennis, about the cleanup on your
Sure.
side and streets?
Yeah, that evening, Joe called me out of, probably about 12:24. We got the barricade trailer out immediately, had two staff members, brought Brendan out. Kind of just tried to stand out of the way and support these guys how we could. When they made the decision to go back to the police department, we did do a sweep of the streets, try to remove any debris that was in the streets. That way, when traffic got going in the following morning, we wouldn't run into any issues with that. That following morning, we were going around doing the door-to-door windshield surveys, sorry. At that time, I went ahead and called Republic Services to see what they could provide as far as roll-offs go. Again, got to say thank you to Jarek and Max for getting the City of Amarillo truck down here. That was a huge, huge help for us. And so, again, we got to thank our partners like the City of Amarillo and Republic for them to be able to do that on a weekend and get roll-offs out almost immediately was a huge help. So we set up a dump site there at the lawyer's title. Tried to man it, tried to not really limit, but really encourage people to help set stuff out on the curb rather than bring us loads, because 4 roll-offs is all we could get. Those are gonna fill up quick when you got people bringing dump load after dump load. So as people brought loads, we asked them to continue, if they wanted to help, to just help get stuff out to the curb, so that we could kind of limit that intake there. And they did that very well, but that City of Amarillo truck was able to go through street, house to house essentially and pick up. They ran most of the day Saturday and then came back on Sunday as well. We had a guy out there that kind of helped him and helped get vehicles moved and whatnot for that process. So it was very helpful, very beneficial to us. By the time I left there, I think Saturday around 5 p.m., went back around probably 7:30 and things had already died down. There were a few piles left, but not a lot. That Sunday, I went out there Sunday evening and there was hardly anything left for us to pick up. We asked them to focus on piles that were larger, that we would have trouble loading by hand, because that was our plan on Monday, to go out there with a rear loader and just get what we could by hand at that point, without bringing equipment out. And they had everything picked up that we couldn't load by hand. So Republic did send out a truck Monday morning, a rear loader, to run that neighborhood for us while we focused on Hunsley and the other bulky neighborhoods that we had to pick up on Monday. And then we did run another sweep after that afternoon after we ran Hunsley Hills, and then picked up what was left. But pretty much by Sunday evening, the majority of it was gone. So very, very fortunate to have the assistance that we did in that.
Planning and Development, they were called out during the initial spots. Lucas, do you or Craig want to say anything, or you want me to read my notes?
Go ahead.
Okay. I believe Lucas came out first, and you brought us some maps and some blown up large images of the neighborhood so that we could start marking residences and make sure we had all of our bases covered on our streets out there, and which greatly assisted with the search and rescue operation as well as law enforcement activities. Saturday morning, Lucas got his team together and they met at 8 o'clock. They were assigned to do windshield surveys, which they found account damaged residences of 22 in one commercial building. They ensured the safety of the occupants on heavily damaged residents by providing inspections to electrical and natural gas services, evaluated those. And if Craig, if I understand right, of those 22, 11 families were displaced, correct?
Yeah.
Initially. And how many have been reoccupied or?
I think we're down to 8. Yeah, so I think we're down to 8.
So.
I'll speak on that here in a minute.
Communications, PIO, Megan, would you like to say anything, or do you want me to read what If you have anything to add, please do so. Megan came in during the initial response early Saturday morning. She provided constant, up-to-date information on social media in reference to the incident. Additionally, monitored the neighborhood social media website or social site, and then coordinated, worked with press all day, and I believe at 1:30 p.m. is when y'all had your Facebook Live update on the media. So, Brian Knowles not here, but Parks did come in Saturday morning as well, that provided employees and equipment, assisted with debris removal and cleanup throughout the day. Just a couple more, what went well. Public safety coordination and initial response, with having that many agencies there, especially the law enforcement side of King and Fire was the only fire department that came in on it. But I think the coordination went really well on that. The assignments for door-to-door checks went very smoothly and were done in a timely manner. PD getting the initial security of the neighborhood established, and just the overall coordination of everyone that was involved there. Positive outcomes, of course, no injuries reported found. Debris management went well. And then getting the roadways cleared Saturday morning to prepare for that traffic. Areas of improvement. Chief Brush talked a little bit about traffic control. Chief Brush and I talked, and I think in future, as we do search and rescue operations, if personnel is available, we will assign a law enforcement officer to each one of those apparatus to help with their search and rescue in case a situation comes up where law enforcement intervention might be needed. One thing we could do better, I believe, is address the reporting of the addresses so we could have a more concise list come daylight to know possibly how many residences or buildings that we're going to need to look at and report damage on. Some additional response training, especially on the emergency management side. Max and I've talked about that some, and we'll be seeing some of that training come in the future. Trying to read my hand notes here. But we did, during our action review, and that was last Friday, correct? We did find some good things we did. We found some areas of improvement, and we'll be working on those. Any questions?
Got a few things to add. I know Cody and Colby Dope did help on some of the rescue stuff with drone at night. It was a little challenging on looking at the debris, and then we did some drone stuff in the next day, Chief Brush and his team. I do think there was some value there. An amazing collaborative effort with all agencies, including Atmos and Excel. You know, gas and power was shut off at numerous locations. They were there with us in doing that. Very, very big on their part. Obviously, it's hard to turn people's power off for safety reasons. I have called nearly everybody on Wilford Street. I'm down to about 5 that I still haven't talked to. There are numerous houses that will be displaced for 4 to 6 months. And so I can tell you that several have acquired rental houses and have required, there were still a few that were in hotels. Everybody was great to visit with on the phone and didn't appear angry. But some of the comments and I did hear was the thankfulness and gratitude for limiting traffic. I heard that on numerous occasions. I did hear how appreciative the boom truck got brought up on at least 2 or 3 comments from Willowford residents, and just the overall cooperation trying to get things done. I know I was personally out there, the mayor was out there. I think this event went well. I do think it would have been worse had we had overhead power out there. Just to remind everybody, the power is underground, and that I think was huge in the damage. The tornado did not damage the electrical line down Hunsley, which you thought it would have because it went from that route. There's a single house on Hunsley right in the row of like 20, I think, maybe Craig Lucas houses in a row, where the roof just lifted and dropped. And that's kind of where it started and began its way, right in the middle of a whole neighborhood of homes. But cannot say enough. I think everybody worked well. Obviously, we can always learn from things and do better. But I do appreciate that. I know Commissioner Jones was out there with us for a time, and Pat and Matt Stocksville. Can't say enough about the efforts for this community. The most amazing, miraculous thing that occurred were the amount of citizens that came out to help clean up, their friends, their families, their neighbors from Amarillo. It was amazing of how many people came to just want to help. I think that's the biggest takeaway I've taken from this. And in my mind, that's what we're all about.
Joe, I agree, and thanks, gosh, everybody here in this room, the leadership that was involved, and appreciate our relationship there with the Office of Emergency Management and you all in the thick of things there as well. I think I could go on and on and on. The chief out there directing traffic all day long. I love seeing that and all too. But every single person I think was out there in a leadership role. And on a Saturday, not thinking twice that Craig had Stan Bernard helping check houses for wiring and safety, and we just had a lot of folks that stepped up to help that day. And I agree with Joe. Had the developer of the Madison Park, Tim Porter, we were in contact a couple of times.
Tim was out there on site with us.
And he was one allowed us to use that office and get into the office for command center. Talking to him early on, how do we get these houses, decked? And he threw it in the middle of the day. Well, he had sheets of decking if needed it, and that didn't end up coming into play. But at the end of the day, and we had neighbors helping, baseball team out helping, and had two different stations of neighbors kind of competing at the end of the day, trying to get everybody to eat hot dogs and hamburgers because they set up sites there at the end of the street and all. And I think we had a lot more hot dogs and hamburgers than even needed. But, that was just the neighbors of Canyon coming together and to serve and make a difference. And at the end of the day, got another phone call from Tim Porter that said, you know what? You all need to figure out a way to put this on social media, that this is the type of community that Canyon is and does it well. So, from our first responders to all of our city folks, but also our community as well. And so, really proud of Canyon. Hate, still have displaced folks and where we're at. But, in the life of Canyon, what Canyon did was really a good thing that day. So, but thanks to everybody.
Yeah, I thought
Thank you, Jim.
super well organized. You guys, I was looking at it from a citizen's perspective, obviously initially, and you guys did a really good job. It was really impressive. I think it does bring some stuff to the forethought of our brains as elected officials, is as we expand, as we grow, that we need to expand and grow with our services. I think Director of Communications, 4 or 5 years ago, that's gone. One of you guys are going to be doing that. I think a fleet program, as you guys start expanding your fleet a little bit, and it kind of puts pressure on the budget as far as, hey, we may need to add an extra car here or so. Chief, you run out of men and women pretty quick 7 or 8 years ago because you're stuck with this many cars. And as you kind of grow cars, you get to use those guys instead of them just be stuck in at the police department. They're out able to do that kind of stuff. And so as we move forward, I think we need to really consider, providing as much resource to those guys as we can for situations just like this.
Anecdotally, on Sunday at 2:00, I was out in that neighborhood, and there were people on that street mowing their yard. You know what I mean? And there were still some people working. Things had settled down. They were getting back to normal already, which I thought was really just a good thing that they were able to do that.
And go the other direction too. Thank the good Lord for protection. There were some close calls out there.
Amen.
Some stories that some folks moved their kids from the front bedroom to the bathroom right at the time when the tornado hit. Sheets were sucked off of the bed. So, thankfully we did not have injuries or deaths. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, On then to the next item, and we got him here, Gretchen, update on unofficial election results.
Yes, sir. Congratulations to Canyon on the success of a really well-run bond election. And I want to thank Megan and Wendy for their educational pieces that they put out. It was very professional, very factual, full of information. If people couldn't find what they wanted to know and all of that, they weren't looking very hard, in my opinion. Thank you to all those that did videos. They were amazing. So I think all that together did bring together a very successful bond election, and we're looking forward to see what Canyon does with that now. We had a total of 873 votes. I would like to see Canyon vote a little heavier for us, but that's what we got. It was consistently ahead voting for the election. Before you have 3 sheets of reports that I received throughout the evening from Randall County. Total for was 471, against was 402. So we're good for that. If you look at it, Election Day did cast votes heavier towards against. So most early voting was for. I found that a little bit interesting on there. And it came in a little bit late. I know I put out that was the final, that's what I was told. But we have vote centers, which means that people can vote. If your precinct is in Canyon, you can vote at a Randall County location in Amarillo. So we had to wait for those. It wasn't a lot of votes. It didn't make a difference. I think there were 6 or 7 that voted that way. So now all we have to do is canvass the election. In order for Randall County to get all their numbers finalized, we're waiting till May 13th. I only need 2 commissioners there to make a quorum. That's all that's required to canvass, so I'll be reaching out to see if we can at least get 2 of you here around 4:30 on the 13th. We'll have a resolution. The bond council will provide all that information, and then we'll get moving. So thank you to everybody.
Tuesday the 13th or Monday the 12th?
Tuesday, 13th.
Yeah, big thank you to you and Megan. Y'all killed it. Good job.
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot of hours, so.
It was good. The most fun I've had on a bond election. I've only done one other, but you know.
And our chiefs were pretty good out there on video and all too.
They're movie stars.
They looked pretty good.
I think we have a lot of movie stars now.
Don't worry, those videos aren't going anywhere.
Take our show on the road. Next city.
Thank you, Gretchen.
You guys.
All right, item number 9, consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 15-2025, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving funding to the Canyon Chamber of Commerce by Canyon Economic Development Corporation supporting the annual Independence Day celebration. I think Stephanie's not here. I think Robin was going to present, and Chuck, you may have a little bit. I sit on the EDC board too, but go ahead.
Well, anybody that wants to speak on this, we had the first reading at the last meeting. EDC board voted to, like I said, mayor's on the board, support the annual Independence Day celebration. Requires 2 readings. We had the first reading last meeting. This is the second final reading for action upon the resolution. So it's recommendation that you adopt resolution 15-2025.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, thank you all. Okay, item number 10, consider and take appropriate action on a petition to enter the extraterritorial jurisdiction of Canyon, annexation into the corporate limits of Canyon, and adoption of resolution number 17-2025, resolution of the City of Canyon, Texas, setting a date, time, and place for public hearings and providing for notice of public hearings in regard to the proposed approval of landowner requests to include unincorporated property in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Canyon followed by annexation of such property upon petition of the landowners Prairie Grass Properties LLC and Montgomery Agricultural Operations LLC, Texas Limited Liability Companies. Chuck?
Thank you, Mayor. At last meeting, the commission did accept the petition of landowners for re-entering their property, which will be known as Phantom Creek, back into the ETJ. It was previously removed. They petitioned to have it re-annexed into the ETJ and to annex into the city of Canyon. The commission did vote to accept that petition. We adopted a calendar last time through error or mistake, and I'll take the credit for that. The legal notice did not run on the public hearing in a timely manner. So all we're doing at this meeting is restarting the annexation calendar. And for that purpose, I recommend adoption of Resolution 17, 2025 for the new annexation calendar with final action date of June 17th.
So move.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 11, presentation of capital improvement plan. Bo?
Yes, thank you. This presentation is being given as a fulfillment of the capital improvement plan that was adopted in 2021. Part of that plan does include an annual presentation of our CIP to take place around April or May. So that's what we're doing here today. I want to give you an update on current projects, but also provide an opportunity to discuss projects that we're looking to put in our plan for the next 3 to 5 years. Best way to kind of organize our current projects right now is to go by funding source. So the first projects we have are funded by the state and local financial recovery funds, also our ARPA funds. There are 3 projects there. The first being the water distribution system relocation. For intersection improvements that they are making, we were required to relocate the water utilities there. That project is complete. The total project cost of $132,180. The second project was the Gold Star building purchase. Total purchase price of $3,250,000. And of that, $2,161,000 what came from our ARPA funds. And then the third project is our force main replacement for our wastewater going to our treatment plant. This project is more than 50% complete. Estimated total cost of $1,674,060. Of that, $1,665,630 is coming from these ARPA funds. And while we are talking about these on the next page, there are required reports with those funds to be provided to the Treasury Department. You can see that we are in compliance so far with all of these required reports as of last week. That was when the most recent report was due on April 30th. Other requirements are that we had all funds obligated by December 31st of 2024. We did fulfill that requirement and was reported on our report that was due last week. The last requirement is that all funds be expended by December 31st of 2026. And so far, we've expended 97% of those funds. So we do not expect any problem meeting that requirement. The next funding source is the 25 series CO projects. We have our water main lines under I-27 as part of TxDOT's expansion of that project there. That project is under construction. Total project cost of $1,106,500, which we expect TxDOT to reimburse $633,800 of that project. Related to that, there's also property purchase and driveways for that I-27 water line. Also some property easement purchase for the water tower to serve Section 4 in the future. Phantom Creek water connections, estimated about $300,000 there. And Phantom Creek water rights when needed, $252,000 Next page, we also have the 4th Street Pump Station Storage Tank. Estimated cost of $2.5 million, and we do expect this project to be open for bids within the next 1 to 2 months. Then we have the Spring Canyon Water Well, number 39, estimated cost of $500,000. The lift station number 8, which we just bid last month, construction cost of $3,896,090 there. Myra Park utility oversizing, estimated cost of $117,732. And the Lumberyard utility extension, it is the wastewater portion of this that is being funded by the COs. The water portion has already been complete. The wastewater is more than 50% complete there. Then we have our grant-funded projects, our normal addition utility improvements, so some alley improvements there, more than 50% complete. Total project cost of $1,051,200, and $350,000 of that is being funded by a CDBG grant. Then our downtown alley reconstruction and private utility relocation, currently under construction, total cost of $806,370, with the grant covering $500,000 of that project. Then our master drainage plan, which we are currently working on finalizing contract for this project, total cost of $340,000, with the grant covering $225,000 of that project. And then our fire department grass truck, which was ordered in February of 2024 that we still have not received yet. Total cost of $300,000 there, and $120,000 of that covered by grant. We have our bond projects. We're very familiar with these. I can skip over these. We've been talking about these the last several months. Nothing has changed there. But then on the next page, we have the Goff irrigation project, still estimated at $4.5 million. Then projects being funded primarily from the general fund. We have professional service for the bond project. This is where we hired Sims Plus to help us prepare for the bond election. Total contract for that was $150,000. So far, they've been paid just over $66,000, so we do expect that to finalize here soon. The reconstruction of Brown Road Railroad approach, there's a temporary solution there in place, but once we do get the construction there, estimated of $1,164,700. This is shared as well with Randall County. And then the East Water Tower lighting, total estimated cost of $200,000, shared 50-50 with WT. We currently have $50,000 of our costs set aside and hope to be able to include the remaining $50,000 in next year's budget. And then for utility fund projects, we have the Myra Park Utility Extension, not to be confused with the oversizing. Oversizing is for planning for the future. Utility extension is to serve Myra Park. Construction of almost $1.5 million there. The next page, we start looking at projects that we are considering within the next 3 to 5 years. Of course, the first one, which we already talked about, was the Hunsley Park improvement. We already have $175,000 set aside for this project. We have filed a claim with the insurance for the damage from the wind event. We expect we need about $50,000 more to complete this project. We'll see what we receive from the insurance company. Then we have the 8th Street sidewalks. This is the sidewalk from Canyon Intermediate to Canyon Junior High. Estimated cost of $992,473. This is an Amarillo MPO project, which they would provide $714,000 for this project. Then downtown engineer design, estimated $750,000 with a grant to cover $300,000 for that. And then the comprehensive bike pedestrian plan, total.
Downtown engineer design is 100% grant. It should be $750,000 grant.
Should be, okay. I like that even
There's
better.
no city match.
And comprehensive bike pedestrian plan, cost of $150,000 with MPO providing $120,000 for that project. And then we have the 15th Street improvement, Phase 1, including the crossing of Highway 60 and the railroad crossing. And then Phase 2, taking street improvements from there to downtown.
We just updated those projects, Bo, like last week, so we hadn't told you yet. What's the new number, Lucas?
2.5 for phase 1 and 2.7 for phase 2.
Okay.
Those just got updated.
Those are locked in for 27 and 29.
So those are on our radars coming up.
I mean, those are locked projects, so.
That's right.
Our challenge will be getting our match.
Correct.
And those were a little differentiated in the original projects. In the original projects that are stated here, we included the approach up to the railroad tracks in both projects because we weren't sure which one was going to go first. So obviously we can deduct that out. We're doing that in phase 1. And phase 1 does include rebuild of the railroad crossing that everybody complains about on 50. That does include 600,000 or so, yeah. So new planks within the rail. Go on, Bo. Sorry.
Yeah. So those are the potential general fund supported projects. Looking at utility fund, we have Phantom Creek well testing. The pump station backup power, this is a project we have already put aside funding for. We estimate we still need about $18,000 to be able to fully fund that project. This is part of a state mandate to require for our water infrastructure. Then we have the update to the wastewater collection study, water supply and distribution study, and lift station number 1 force main reconstruction, estimated about $1.45 million there. In addition to those specific projects, we are trying to include in the budget provisions for water line replacement, wastewater line replacement, bridge street repair, and land easements, not specific projects, but just to be available if needed. The past couple years that we've been trying to include this, it has not made the final budget, except for land easements. We were able to include something for land easements this year. That is everything for our CIP projects right now. Welcome any questions or any further details that y'all may need. Right now, there are 198 projects on our full CIP plan.
Thank you, Bo. You've really taken this to another level with the pictures and all the way you're outlining it. Thank you. I mean, we've come from when we started this with Venetia, myself, drawing something up and coming up with an idea, and you've really taken it a long way, so thank you for doing that.
We do expect also some further updates with projects such as the master drainage plan. They may identify additional projects or may set some projects as a higher priority as to where they are now. So things like that, the wastewater study, the water distribution supply study, once those are completed, will have significant impacts on our CIP as well.
One more thing in the budget, but I am hearing more comments on our rough brick streets. You know, I've heard more comments in the last 9 months probably.
Yes, sir.
Always find the dollars.
Thanks, Bo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. All right, item number 12. Bo, looks like you're taking care of this also. Consider and take appropriate action on the request for qualifications for the development of a transportation safety plan.
Yes, thank you again. The city has been awarded a grant to develop a safety action plan as part of the Safe Streets for All grant program. This plan will further the city's goals for improving roadway safety and accessibility while addressing the needs of the transportation users. These goals were set in the comprehensive plan and the downtown master plan. So this does take us one step closer to fulfilling those goals. When we're looking for a firm to fulfill this need, this firm will conduct comprehensive analysis of existing conditions, engage with stakeholders, community members, recommend policy and project improvements, and align with local government and regional planning efforts. We received 4 responses to this RFQ request. You can see them rated there. Out of a highest possible of 100 points, the Goodman Corporation received 95, Kimley Horn 87.6, Bartlett and West 82, and TJKM received an average of 76. Staff recommends that the City Commission authorize staff to initiate negotiations for professional services for the development of a transportation action plan in accordance with the results of the RFQ. Following the authorization, the city would begin negotiations with the firm deemed most qualified, which would be the Goodman Corporation. And if a contract cannot be agreed upon, the negotiations would then begin with the next most qualified firm, and the process would continue until a contract would be agreed upon.
Well, can you tell me where the Goodman Corporation is based out of?
Not off the top of my head.
That's okay.
They're out of Houston.
Houston, okay.
They're a more boutique firm that just does transportation planning.
Okay.
They're currently working on Amarillo Safety Action Plan.
Okay.
And so that's where they found a lot of scoring favor as far as understanding our region and challenges. So Amarillo spoke pretty highly of them.
Very good. I move to authorize the city staff to negotiate a contract for the development of a transportation sequence with the results of the request for qualifications.
Second.
Have a motion second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, and that takes us to item number 13, executive session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney, and 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. And with that, I have 6:26, and we will retire into exec session.
Got a list.
Yes. Would y'all be able to just speak briefly?
The
Warren Turner here to quickly talk about our discussion on fire pay as well as the unofficial results of the bond. We can go ahead and skip the tornado for y'all.
Hey,
John, do you remember John?
Going good?
That's just the difference.
You don't have to wrap it up on time.
This is based off of base pay. Oh, that probably includes some benefits. Yeah. So this is just base pay, 3% increase, and then half,
Good
3.
discussion there, that's Hattery Point. You've got all these roof contractors there, and like good roofers there. We also needed to know.